This is Dateline News and Conversation. We're going to talk about some important things tonight. My guest, he doesn't need much of an introduction, Dean Henderson. We're going to talk about censorship, disinformation, how they do it, and who's doing it. We're going to talk about the connection, and they're all connected. Ukraine, Israel, genocide on Taiwan and Gaza, genocide on Gaza, Israel. We're going to talk about America now pivoting east to China, identifying it as their number one enemy. And we're going to talk about how the United States uses soft power all over the world. We're also going to talk about how Navalny's death was reported all across mainstream media, reading from the exact same text. And what's going on here? And then we're going to talk about what's their agenda. We've had this conversation with Dean a number of times, but tonight we're going to connect all of these things. So, Dean, welcome back to the show.
Hello, Regis. Good to be back.
Well, it's always good to have you and always a pleasure. There are so many people around the world now who respect your research and your work over the last number of years, the books that you've authored. Tonight, though, I want to talk about, first of all, censorship and disinformation. Now, Tucker Carlson recently did an interview with a guy named Mike Pence, who I think was in the State Department, and he was part of creating this disinformation, this official narrative. And basically what he revealed was, and to me, it was worse. I mean, I always knew it was bad, but this was incredible. He basically said that every single one of the intelligence agencies, the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Defense, the military-industrial complex also involved in it, universities involved in it, and MI6. And they have been collaborating for the last maybe decades in crafting the official narrative. And anybody who's paying attention, and there have been a lot of studies done on this, if you look at the mainstream media, every single one of them, and you put them all together, they're saying the exact same thing. There's nothing new or different. Dean, what are your thoughts and what do you know about this intelligence network that not only is censoring us on the internet, they have basically destroyed the First Amendment? Your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is they're extremely desperate. They're so desperate they're willing to take us to World War III, which I maintain has already started. And the reason they're desperate is because despite all their censorship and all their disinformation and all their organizing and all their money and all the people that sold their souls to work for them, they are losing the information war because shows like this, and there's a lot of shows like this, and also because of their desperation, they've overstepped and they've shown people, for example, Israel is showing people what it really is. And Ukraine and the U.S. puppeteer and the crown puppeteer above that through the MI6 is showing itself for what it really is. So that's the first thing, is they're desperate, and that's why they go to such great lengths to censor people that tell the truth. And they try to write them off as these, right-wing Nazi gun-carrying crazy people. But the fact is, there's a broad gamut of, you know, people with different politics. For example, myself being basically a Leninist, who you know, I'm not a Nazi. I don't want anything to do with that, and I still tell the truth, and I still get censored. So that's just another lie. It's just another lie in their arsenal, but it's not working. So that's the first thing. Second thing, where does it come from? Well, you got to go all the way back to the Empire Press Union, which was organized by the British Pilgrim Society in the city of London back in the 1880s, I believe. And this was after they had incorporated the United States of America as the United States Corporation in 1871, and incorporated each state. And we're all subjects of the crown. We're all subjects of the British Empire still. So the U.S. is not the senior partner in this relationship. The U.K. is the senior partner, and that's illustrated by the fact that, you know, Zelensky came to power in Ukraine, promising peace, and within days after he was elected, he was summoned to London, and he met with the head of MI6. It was the head of MI6 that put him up to this war, that put him up to basically, you know, starting the problems in the Donbass, attacking people with his Azov battalion, fascists, and so forth. And so the Pilgrim Society started this Empire Press Union. Well, the Pilgrim Society, who was it? Well, it was the Rothschilds, it was Alfred Milner, it was all these wealthy bloodline aristocrats in the city of London, from their lair in the city of London. And they said, okay, the media. This was the beginning, really, of the print media major league in Europe, and you know, from the very beginning. I mean, just the name Empire Press Union. What do you? Okay, so let's take that apart. Empire. Let's take the next word apart. Press. What does press mean? Press for what? Press. What are we pressing here? What's being pressed? In union, which, as you say, they all put out the same narrative on Navalny's death, on everything. And it all comes from the AP or from Reuters. And Reuters, of course, itself being an old British family. It was William Reuters who was heavily involved in the whole Iranian situation early on, and installing the Shah and stuff like that. So after the Empire Press Union was formed, you know, that pretty much was a consolidation of the media, the very first consolidation of the media. Then you get to the mid 1940s, and when they went to form, this is all in my last book, when they went to form the intelligence services in the UK, which were being formed right around then, both the MI5 and the MI6, they recruited from the Empire Press Union ranks, from the media ranks, right? And why not? Because if you think about it, intelligence operations, what are they? What is an intelligence operation? Well, it's basically lying. Whether you're lying to your supposed enemy overseas, or more importantly, and they know more importantly, that you're lying to your own populace. Because when you live in an empire that's over consuming and has everything and more than they need, and the rest of the world's starving, and you're getting those commodities by colonizing these global South countries and taking their resources, you know, you have to keep your own population, especially in the dark. And so that's why people in the United States and people in Europe, especially the UK, have historically been the most in the dark about what's happening, because they keep us well fed. They keep us with bread and circuses, distractions, and entertainment. But it's all part of intelligence operations. So intelligence operations is basically deception. It's all about deception. You know, Victor Ostrowski wrote that, the ex-Mossad agent in his book. I think the name of the book was, I can't even remember, but it's something about always deception like this. Some folks have read that. But excellent book. And it's true. It's just all based on lies. So if you're going to be working for the CIA, you're going to learn to be a good liar. because that's what it's all about. So if the media has formed an alliance, the media, medium in Latin, medium, meaning getting between you and the truth. So in a sense, all media is bad. And I don't consider us media here. I consider us truth tellers. It's different. But in a sense, from way back, the media has been in the way of you and seeing the truth. So if you're going to, merge that media with the intelligence, and intelligence operations are all about deception, then guess what? So is the job of medium or the media. It's all about deception. And it's all about the oligarchs taking control of both the intelligence sources and the media, which they have, and they've had for a very long time, over a century. Then it's all going to be lies. And I always tell people, when you read or you hear or you listen to the mainstream media, which you shouldn't really do very much, but when you do it, it's okay to do it, as long as when you watch that half-hour news at night, you understand that everything they're telling you is 180 degrees from the truth. It's the exact opposite. It's an inversion of the truth. And then, of course, interspersed with pharmaceutical company commercials that are designed to, they're happy. These drugs will make you happy because this news is depressing. And of course, that increases sales at the pharmaceutical companies. And then, and the commercials, as the news goes by in the U.S. anyway, the commercials will get longer than the news piece. So you have like a 3-second news clip or a 5-second news clip followed by a 5-minute commercial, or 2 or 3 from pharmaceutical companies for the most part. Now the big tech giants are involved too, and they've got Google and Samsung, and they're running ads in the same manner. And again, it's the same kind of drug, because the dopamine people get from their phones is about the same garbage as they're getting over the counter from the Rockefeller oil-based medicine industry. But it's all just to put us in the dark. And at the very end of these news stories, they'll have a 5-minute segment, and it'll be this feel-good story about how, this person somewhere did this good deed, this little kid or this old person lived to 120, and they had a birthday for her. And which is great, of course. I mean, these are good things, but the design of that is so that you will trust them. After watching 25 minutes of lies and sales pitches from pharmaceutical companies, the last 5 minutes is always dedicated anymore in the U.S., all 3 channels, all 3 major networks, to a feel-good story. And that all that does is reinforces your trust in Lester Holt or Nora O'Donnell or whoever. And these people are good. They can't be lying to me. They reported this story. They're such benevolent people, and it's just so obvious. If you can see that the first time you see it, you'll never not see it again. And so then you learn that you just don't listen. You just don't trust them. Like everything they say is a lie, and everything. And so anyway, go back to the mid-40s. MI6, MI5, recruiting from Empire Press Union, right? 1947, a year after MI6 is formed, the CIA was formed. And it was formed at a meeting in the city of London. It wasn't formed in the United States. It was formed by the same Pilgrim Society, by the same Porton Down oligarchy that, the crown that runs the city of London. And so then the CIA got involved in that. And the NSA, I believe it was 1948, the NSA was formed. So it was all the same time, all these UK and US intelligence agencies were formed. And then 47, it was Israel, same time. And the Mossad was formed. And Israel is just a colonial settler project in the Middle East, administered by, whoever, but formed and owned and controlled and for the purposes of the crown, for the purposes of the UK. That's why the Balfour Declaration, 1917, the basis of it was written by Lord Rothschild to Lord Alfred Milner. And that's why the Haganah and the Stern Gang terrorists that came during the first Nakba and invaded Palestine and stole people's land initially, and it's been nothing but stealing land since. And that's the whole idea, is to steal the land, because that's what colonial settlers do for their colony, for the crown. That's what they've always done. That's what Americans did to the Indians. That's what South American Spaniards did, for the Habsburgs and the Bourbon family. And then they subject them, and then those lands are used to feed the corporate banking globalist machine. So in Israel also is there to stir up trouble and to target Arab nationalists for the crown, for BP and Royal Dutch Shell and their banks and their owners, who are the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Oppenheimers and others. And so their job is to attack people like Gaddafi, to attack the Algerians under Boumediene, to attack Iraq once Saddam had a change of heart and became a communist, pretty much, to attack the Iranians, to attack the Yemeni government, which caused the Houthi resurgence. And because the Saudis used the Yemeni workers like rags for 40 years, working for Aramco, the big crown-controlled oil company that was owned by the Four Horsemen, and give them $1 a day. They'd import the labor, send them back home, just like Israel imports, African laborers, treats them like garbage, sends them home, never gives them anything, minimum. Just like nowadays, the Gulf Cooperation Council, rich Arab states import Filipino workers, and they treat them the same way. And so Israel's job has always been, from the very beginning, to guard the oil patch and to make sure that nationalist governments did not come to power, because those nationalist governments would do what? They would nationalize the oil interests of the country, and the big oil companies, the private big oil companies of the crown, would be either have to pay a half or something. They'd have to pay something fair to the host country to take that oil out, or they would just be completely nationalized, as in the case of Libya, as in the case of Iraq, as in the case of Iran. And they would get nothing. And then it would be a state oil company that was sitting on all this oil. And that's why Ronald Reagan created the Gulf Cooperation Council back in 1981, was to form the GCC and to use that in addition to Israel as another means where they could get privatized oil for the companies and not for the state, those states. And so they installed the sheikhs, and they're part of the bloodline. All the sheikhs in those countries, all those single family rule countries, are a part of the scheme. Okay, so and so anyway, there was this nexus of in the mid 40s, late 40s, where this media intelligence union was formed, solidified, and of course, with Edward Bernays, with cybernetics, with the advent of television, which is also about that same time, interestingly, 1940s, they found that they could just lie to people, and that the best way to control opinion and politics, economics, everything really, was just to lie to people. And they got pretty good at it. And, it's all cybernetics. It's all, sort of Pavlov's dog, real slick. It's real slick. Once you see through it, you'll laugh at it for the rest of your life. But unfortunately, a lot of people believe the shtick that they've developed. And one of the shticks is, for example, in our television programs, even not the news, but just say History Channel or Arts and Entertainment Channel, documentaries on Geographic Channel, whatever. They'll use these British accented people to tell us what's up, to be the expert. So this causes Americans to think in their subconscious, if it hasn't surfaced to their conscious, which it needs to, that these British are so much smarter than us, and this erases from our memory the fact that we fought the British during the Revolutionary War, and that we fought, and that and so they're easily to manipulate, and that's why Americans are Anglophiles. We love the British, even though that's the country that we fought to get free from. That's the bloodline, King George. We didn't fight Muslims. We didn't fight immigrants coming across the border. We didn't fight communists. We fought the British, right? And so now it's gotten worse, because under Clinton, Bush, it really, the city of London got more powerful. The offshore dollars that go through the city of London got more impactful and more dirty with drugs, human trafficking, oil money, because all that stuff, the city of London is totally opaque. There's no regulation. You don't know where the money's coming from. There's no paper trail. You don't know who owns those assets. They're all offshore. In the Cayman Islands or any number of British administered colonies, basically, banking colonies. There's colonies of all kinds. So once they were lying to people like that, a lot of people fell for it. And television has been yeah, maybe the worst thing ever that happened to the human race. And then came the internet, and then you could interactively lie to yourself or help them lie to you with social media or with Google is God, so everything Google tells us is a stone cold fact. And then Google can just go through and they can censor people like us and delete us from their search engine. So you can't find us. And what you'll find on Google is the mainstream lies, like Snopes, or like Wikipedia, or like these official experts. And so that made it easier even yet, because you could sell something to people that said, no, wait a minute, let's check it out here. And when you check it out here, it's the liars again. It's the same intelligence services, the same owners of the television media, the print media now own the internet media. And they can decide what's true and what's a lie. The Poynter Institute is another one that does that. And it's all funded by who? George Soros, the lieutenants of the crown, and the Clinton Foundation, things like that. So that's kind of how it works. And so increasingly, we found out in the church committee hearings in the 70s, mid 70s, that Operation Mockingbird was real, and that there was many media personalities who were CIA agents, who were actually CIA agents. And Anderson Cooper, CNN, he's a Vanderbilt. He's a member of the Vanderbilt family, for example. They're all coming from these bloodline families, and they're all working for the intelligence services, and they also work for the banks, because they don't work for the American people. They work for this global oligarchy. That's who both the media and the intelligence services work for, and the banks. And so it all kind of coalesces in America anyway at the Council on Foreign Relations, which is again a subsidiary of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which is the mothership, which is in the City of London in Chatham House. And they have all these different branches all around the globe, and one of them is the Council on Foreign Relations here in America, which was established at Pratt House in Washington, D.C., which was owned by the Rockefeller family. And their publication, called Foreign Affairs, is the most widely read foreign policy journal by far in the circles of power in Washington. Congressmen, senators, K Street people that make decisions. And it's this journal where, for example, Zbigniew Brzezinski's article first appeared, Clash of Civilizations, way back in the 80s, talking about how there would be this clash between Muslims and Jews, and Muslims and the West, and wasn't really happening then. And so he was foreshadowing, he was telling us what they were planning. And then it's mixed in with a bunch of lies, of course, about how things work and the nature of U.S. foreign policy, and we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. And so that keeps the elite even in the dark, because they read that religiously. So there's all these tools at their disposal. And, you look at the Navalny death, exactly. So they all the same narrative. My take on it, he was killed by CIA or British intelligence because he was CIA. George Papadopoulos has reported that, and another fellow reported that he thinks MI6 did it. And there's a lot of smart people out there that are onto this pretty fast, like there always is anymore. But he was CIA, so they didn't want him to talk. So you do two things with one stone. You kill Navalny to shut him up because he knows too much, and you don't want him to tell the people at the jail what he knows. He probably told them too much anyway. And then you go and kill him, and you blame it on the Russians. So easy. And you create another anti-Russia narrative, because we have to hate Russia, because the thing is, Russia helped this country, the United States, during the Revolutionary War and during the Civil War. And people don't realize that. They went after Emperor Maximilian in Mexico, who's a Habsburg, who ran Mexico at that time. Mexico is run by the same people. And they also did a blockade of British ships who were coming to America with supplies for the Confederacy. And the Confederacy was totally backed by the crown. They were trying to destroy America at that time. They were not happy with Andrew Jackson. They were not happy with Abraham Lincoln. and their rebellious attitudes towards a public central bank instead of the Bank of the United States, which was Rothschild's central bank. So the Russians bail us out. And why do they hate the Russians? Well, that's part of it. Why they hate us? Because we fought them, because we have democracy, because we have innovation, because we're, you know, I mean, we're at least we used to be. I mean, a democracy. I'm not sure we're anymore. Why do they hate the Russians? Well, those two things, and then plus the fact that Russia back in 1400 AD went after the Khazarian mafia. Khazarian mafia were the Babylonians. Babylonians were the Sumerians. This is all, you know, and the Rothschilds were the Baccarats in Khazaria, and they made a lot of money on the Silk Road, and they established themselves in that area, Central Asia. And the Russians came to them in about, I think it was 1200 AD. They said, look, you guys, you know, our kids are going missing. You know, they were abusing children. They were abusing the Silk Road pilgrims and the traders. They would literally steal all their stuff, take their identity, then go on to Europe under the guise of them and make more money off the rest of their stuff. They were not nice people, and neither were the Babylonians, and neither were the Sumerians. So Russia went after them and said, look, well, you know, you guys, our kids are going missing. There's all this crazy stuff going on. We think you're kind of satanic. You know, you need to adapt one of these three religions. It's got to be Christianity, it's got to be Islam, or it's got to be Judaism. So they said, okay, we'll adopt Judaism. So about another 10, 15 years went by. Nothing changed. Outwardly, they were now the Ashkenazi Jews. That's where the Ashkenazi Jews originated, was in Khazaria. But inwardly, they were still satanic, and they still went by the Talmud, which is a horrible book that talks about, among other things, you know, bathing Jesus in a vat of shit. They hate Jesus because Jesus was revolutionary. So they didn't change their ways. And so the Russians actually came back in, and they fought like a 10, 15-year war against the Khazarians and just pushed them out of the area because they weren't the only ones. The Turks, the Ottoman Empire wasn't happy. You know, Genghis Khan wasn't happy. I mean, these people were just bad. So then they went to Bohemia, and they became the Bohemians, which we're supposed to think Bohemians are very cool, I guess, because that word gets thrown around, especially among the kind of left, liberal, hippie types, like a good thing, but it's not. And then they moved on to Eastern Europe, and then they, you know, the Rothschilds became bankers to the House of Hesse, the German House of Hesse. And while that was happening, they changed their name to Bauer from Baccarat. It was Baccarat. It's interesting too, right? Because that's a casino game that a lot of people play around the world. And then they changed the name to Bauer. And they either they stole money from the German House of Hesse, or they got cut in by the House of Hesse. And then they changed their name to Rothschilds and pretty much intermarried with the whole bloodline, with the whole other part of the bloodline, the kings and queens. And that's where it sits today. And it was the Ashkenazis that were part of the Zionist project that was planned by Theodor Herzl, that was mapped out by the Balfour Declaration, and that happened in the late 40s with backing of the British Navy. When the Haganah gang, Israeli settler Ashkenazi terrorists came to that part of the world and said, oh, there's nothing here, we'll just take it, which is total lies, because there's pictures of beautiful palaces in Palestine 200 years ago. So that just continues today. But that's why they hate Russia and America, and that's why they have to keep us divided, because if Russia and America ever got together, we could take down the crown. We could take down the United Kingdom, the city of London, not the people, but the elite. And we could take down this whole global control grid. And they can't let that happen. So they have to do Russia, Russiagate, Russia, and get the American people through their media, CIA nexus that they control, and convince them, using Trump as a red herring, I would argue, you know, because if Trump likes Russia, I don't like him, you know, and all this, and they have to keep us hating Russia. And they've done it over and over and over. I mean, it's not, you know, it's just the job of the media and the intelligence service, as ordered by the crown, by the bloodline, to keep us divided at all costs. So it's worked pretty well so far, sadly, but that can change.
Wow. You mentioned quite a number of things. I want to comment on a couple. In the very beginning, you made it clear that the United States is not a senior partner in any of this.
Mm-mm.
And, you know, um, tying that back to Russia and Vladimir Putin, Sergei Lavrov, and those who comment from the Kremlin, Peskov and Zaharova from the State Department, they've made it clear that there's nobody to talk to in the person of Joseph Biden, Anthony Blinken, any of these people. They basically know that the orders are coming from somewhere else.
I think so.
And I think it's really good that you made that very clear. The other thing I think that is of extreme importance, it's a coordinated operation between all of these intelligence agencies, the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, and MI6. The messages are the same all over the collective West, as they like to say. And Dean, what I think that's done, to make this very clear, because of this total misinformation, disinformation campaign, and it's been going on forever. I mean, it isn't just since the 1940s. Everything we learned about American history was a lie. Everything. You know, the city on the hill, freedom, democracy. You know, God has instilled us with this to spread this around the world. American exceptionalism. Americans, I really believe, have been hardwired, neurologically hardwired by these messages that have been coordinated. I mean, my entire life, from everything, from the television, you know, from the newspapers, from everything that the messages that they've overwhelmed us with have hardwired us to not even be able to believe there could be a different story. How many of us have lost friends, family members, when we've tried to tell them and share with them alternative narratives, when we've tried to share with them the truth? I think, Dean, it's impossible to unwire neurologically the belief systems that have been created over all these decades. A couple of quick comments on that, Dean. I don't think we can overcome this.
I mean, it's hard because it's like you have to really unravel the whole thing, and you have to understand that everything you've been told since you were a little kid's a lie, and you have to start over. But there's a way to do it, and I've gotten better at it, where you just boom, 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 you know, and you just don't. You can't mess around. You just tell them directly, this is how it is. And some people, when you tell them that, it'll crack their, you know, their normalcy, their sense of normalcy. But a lot of people it won't. So I think it really does depend on the person. I think it depends on your intelligence level, because your ability to think critically about that. And that's what they're trying to take away from us. Especially with social media, with this, like this creation of this hive mind, you know, that all thinks the same, and that's how you're supposed to be. And if you're not, you get punished by the hive itself. And so they create like these deputies, like your parents could be a deputy, you know, for the crown, and just defend the system and admonish you for being different, and you should be a doctor and a lawyer, and just like that. That's deputization of your parents. And then they deputize your teachers in school. And you can't think it. No, that's not in the textbook. That's outside the text. You can't. No, it's just multiple choice. No, no essay tests. We don't want to know what you know. We just want to know that you confirm our stupid system, and that you're obedient, and that you listen, and that you're on time. And that's because, well, the next place you go is work, and you have to be on time, and you have to be a good nigger, basically, and just keep your head down, do what the boss tells you, don't demand any rights, and just put up with the shit the rest of your life. And that's how people live. And then, when you get to be 65, you get to retire and you can travel and you can whatever. But no, not in America, because by then you're sick and you're in the hospital, and everything you've saved, if you've saved anything at all, which a lot of people don't, is gone. It's taken by the hospital industry, by the drug industry, by the health insurance industry, and they'll just wipe you out, because we're the only country in the world that doesn't have a socialized medicine, a single payer health plan of some kind. And that's what you have to look forward to. Okay. If you just are hardwired, like you say, and if you just want to stay that way. So what I'm saying is, it's to your detriment to stay that way. And I'm pretty sure everybody listening to the show is not like that. And they've seen through the BS, and they've gone another way. But they don't tell you, they don't volunteer information about this other way. Like, oh, maybe you don't have to own a home and have a 2-car garage and go to work 9 to 5, work 40 hours, lay low, get your retirement, put in a 401k. Maybe you don't have to do it that way. Maybe there's another way. So you have to seek that out, and you have to get fed up enough to seek that out. And you have to, I don't know, you just have to have that something in you, some kind of rebellious, some God thing, some like, this ain't right. I ain't putting up with this. But I think, we're out of time now where, again, as I say at the start of this interview, they're desperate. We've outed them. We've exposed them. We've made Rothschild a dirty word around the world. Israel's becoming a dirty word around the world. There's 59 countries now on board with South Africa arguing this at the Hague. And most African countries have thrown out their Israeli ambassadors. Many countries have. And the further this goes on, the more they expose themselves. So just like with COVID and that whole scam, there's a chance for another bunch of people to be woke up. And there was a bunch of people woke up by COVID. That's why there's a 5% booster rate in this country for the COVID shots, because a lot of people that got those shots have buyer's remorse. And just like that, in the same sense, this situation in Israel is it's ugly, it's sad, it's sick. I've never seen anything more horrible in my life. The Ashkenazis are Nazis. Get it? It is the same thing as the Warsaw Ghetto. It is the same thing, because it's the same people. People don't realize, Jews, the wealthy Ashkenazi Jews that left Israel, that left Germany to come to Israel, had to pay $1,000 to this guy named Rosenbaum. And that was Hitler's immigration secretary, a Jew, a wealthy Jew working for Hitler, right? And it was poor Jews that were killed. It was gypsies who were killed. It was poor Christians who were killed. It was working stiffs who were killed. It was communists that were killed. And they all were killed in these labor camps set up for the Ford Motor Company and General Motors, so they could build up the Western economies for the bloodlines that controlled them by using slave labor in Germany. So these Ashkenazis are outing themselves now. And this world is run by Nazis right now. Make no mistake, the Nazis were not defeated. The Nazis just reestablished a beachhead in America. They stayed in the UK, where they originated, because they trained Hitler at Tavistock Institute in the city of London. And then they moved to Israel. And this nexus of Nazi evil is what's running the world. It's nothing short of that. And they're coming out of the closet now. So here's another chance for people to break that hardwiring, to break through that, to say, wow, everything I've been told is a lie. And once you know a big thing like this is a lie, it will have a roller effect, downhill effect, where you'll actually start seeing everything as a lie. So it can work like that too. So look, it's good and evil. I think we're already in World War III. I don't know what's going on. We had an AT&T outage the other day. AT&T says, well, we were putting up more 5G towers. Could be. Maybe they're turning up to 60 gigahertz to kill more of us with their weapons system called 5G that Crown Castle put up, all the towers. Crown Castle, Fleet Street, City of London, put them all up. We don't know what they are. Nobody regulates them. Nobody gets up on those towers and says, what's that? How come I live next to a tower right now? My cell service is terrible. Is it really 5G? Is it really for your cell phone? Is it really so you can stream movies faster? Or is it just a weapon system? The government, some papers are saying, oh, it was a solar flare. Maybe it was. Maybe God's pissed and we're all going to be done here if we don't stand up against this evil pretty soon. Because not enough of us are. I know me. Or maybe it's a Chinese or a Russian attack, a cyber attack on America. Because AT&T's towers were down. And maybe they're testing things out. I think we're already in World War III. I think Putin's talk with Tucker Carlson revealed a lot of things, and a lot of people won't have seen it. But he seemed very, denazification. What does that mean? Well, we thought we got them in Donbass. We thought we could just stop there. We thought they'd stop. No, they're still in Kyiv. These are Nazis. Zelensky, Khodorkovsky, Kolomoisky. They're all Ashkenazis. See, in Ukraine, interestingly, sits right where Khazaria used to be. So are they trying to reestablish a Khazarian empire? Are they trying to reestablish a greater Israel? Are they? Yes. Are they? They've said that. And then are they going to connect those two things? Because they're not that far away. And is that going to be the new global headquarters when the United States gets wiped out because we're being led down the road of militarism and Hessianization of our troops for the crown while they sit back and count their money? Yeah, probably. That's what I got. But whatever it is, it's interesting, and I think, and then the EU slapped sanctions on China. I know one of the topics you want to talk about is China. They're enemy number one. But who slapped the sanctions on China the other day? It wasn't the U.S., it was the EU. And that's telling, and for no apparent reason. So it's just this aggression against China because China's going back to more of the Maoist way, honestly, rather than the capitalist way. And it's aggression against Russia because they're just reasonable people, I guess. Putin's not an ideologue. He's just pragmatic, and he's done some things that are left wing. He's done some things that are capitalist way. He's trying to get along, just like he said in the interview. But yeah, like he said, nobody to talk to. And the other thing I thought was interesting in that interview, while we're on that, is Russia before the Ukraine situation and the sanctions, before the sanctions really, wasn't even on the radar as far as a country with purchasing power, and now they're number 5 in the world in purchasing power, which is higher than any other European country. And meanwhile, the US and the UK and these countries are slipping down the ladder in purchasing power. And so I think what it is, it's World War III and it's an economic war. And I think Putin knows that. And that's why, people get frustrated. Why doesn't he go faster in Ukraine? Why doesn't he just wipe these people out? They could do it. No problem. Well, A, he's humane. He doesn't want to kill a lot of people. But B, he knows it's an economic war. And he knows the U.S. is running out of money. And he knows that we're $35 trillion in debt. And that is not sustainable. And so the way to defeat the U.S. and the U.K. is through economic warfare. And that, I think, is what's going on. And the Chinese, the same can be said with the Chinese because, they're just not playing ball with us anymore on economic things anymore. They're saying you can't come here and exploit us anymore. That's why there's a shortage of goods. That's why Trump put the tariffs on them. And especially after they realized, I think, that we attacked them with the COVID-19 virus at a laboratory in their country, but it was our laboratory and our military that attacked China. And I think after that, it was kind of like, okay, adios. We're not doing this anymore. So, and the same can be said of the biolabs in Ukraine that the Russians found out about. They just keep finding out, that, you can't reason with evil. You can't reason with, exceptionalism people that think they're better than you, people that patronize you, people that think they're smarter than you are. You can't reason with them because they're always going to do that one extra thing to get an advantage. And that's what this Anglo-UK, Anglo-US Israeli axis does. They're snakes, and they'll always get the better. They'll always try to get the better of you, whether it's on politics or economics or anything. They'll always just want to be on top. It's this dominance paradigm that was, set up under the old pyramid on a dollar bill, right? By the Anunnaki kings, the first ones. And this is the enslavement that we've put up with for 8,500 years, is this dominance paradigm where you can't just be equal. You can't see everybody as, respect everybody equally. And so what do? They just create trouble between men and women, between blacks and whites, between gays and straights, between different groups of people, just between Russians and Americans, to divide us. Meanwhile, they sit at the top of the pyramid while we're down here fighting. And we should be uniting, and we're not. And they know that. And that's a big part of the media too, especially social media, keep us divided. Keep these two fake camps at each other's throats, and thinking they're so different from each other. And when in fact they're not, and keep the attention off the ruling class and off the discussion of class and off a discussion of the bloodlines, a discussion of the crowns, the real things that are happening in this world. And when you talk about that stuff, that's when they want to kill you and they want to censor you and they want to shut you down, because any discussion of class is prohibited in the West anymore.
Yeah. It's pretty frightening. And, it's looking like we were losing, but you keep saying that, these globalists are terrified. They can see what's happening. They're losing their clout. They're losing their power. As more and more people wake up and are pushing back. I want to just talk a little bit about social media. I've had so many people tell me it is so difficult to believe the truth with so much information coming at us from all sides. I had a classmate. We were in high school and college together and beyond. And he said to me, how is it that after all of our education and our religious background, you're in favor of war? And I haven't answered yet, but I'm going, whoa, you know nothing about me. You made an assumption based on the fact that I sent you the transcript and the video of Putin's interview with Tucker Carlson. And you accused me of being in favor of Russia's invasion. I mean, that's where we're at today. The information that these people and my friends in the United States have been getting has been overwhelming. It doesn't even allow an intelligent conversation, because social media now really hasn't afforded us a platform for freedom of speech, because we're censored on so many levels. Dean, it's, Snowden 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it is now, revealed what the NSA was collecting. And basically what he said was, if you are not afraid of what's happening because you say, oh, I don't have anything bad to say, I'm a good guy. He said, you don't understand what's happening. And what is happening, Dean, they're using artificial intelligence, algorithms. They can even decode voice messages like our voices now. If we say anything that's contraband, it used to be COVID. Now it's anything about Putin. these flags come up. If they want, they can tell how many people are responding to that conversation and those thoughts. They can flip it all and they can turn us off. They shadow ban us. Okay? You mentioned early on in this telecast that when you do a search on Google, we don't even come up. We don't even come up. I mean, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Social media right now is not a platform for freedom of speech. You know, you and I can talk and a handful of people, but it's a harmless group of people, okay, who are out there challenging the official narrative. You know, what I really appreciate is you pointed out how all of this is connected. Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, Taiwan. The last thing I want to talk about, Dean, is the use of soft power. I have some friends in Europe, Western Europe and Eastern Europe, who have created a movement. It's very small, but they call it leaving the American sector. And what they mean is leaving the influence of the United States all across Europe, all those military bases, all that money that they've been using, everything that the United States has been using what they call soft power, USAID, George Soros, American universities in so many countries been there for decades that have been educating and brainwashing the younger generations. When we look at what just happened in Armenia, we see the same thing happening in Georgia. We see the same thing happen in Croatia, in Serbia. The attempts to undermine these governments by the use of United States soft power. I want your comments on, again, we have to get back to the United States is not the major, not the senior partner here. The soft power, when you really look at it, you peel it away, is not coming from the United States of America. It's coming from, tell me where.
Well, where did Snowden work for? Most people don't even know. He worked for Booz Allen Hamilton. Booz Allen Hamilton is a UK-controlled contractor. And it's all these contractors for the NSA that actually have the real power. Once the Five Eyes Alliance was formed, and once Serco got all these contracts, mainly Serco, but also SAIC, Booz Allen Hamilton, all these private contractors, and they're all loaded with ex-generals and ex-military people. So, yeah, I mean, in other words, you know, Project Echelon, which Booz Allen Hamilton was obviously working on because that's what Snowden revealed, this program where the intelligence services would work with AT&T, and back then it was MCI, the phone companies. And every time a certain word would be said on a phone line, it would be picked up. Didn't matter who said it, where it was said. If you said the word revolution, maybe if you said the word Illuminati, who knows? Maybe, you know, whatever the word, Freemasons, whatever the word is, they had their words, and it would automatically red flag you. And that was all going to the Five Eyes Alliance, which is the UK, US, New Zealand, Australia, Canada. And this Five Eyes Alliance was formed back in the 40s, same time all this other stuff was formed, right after the NSA was formed. And so what is the National Security Agency? Again, it doesn't work for Americans. It works for the Crown. What is USAID? Well, guess who the biggest contractor at USAID is that leeches the money that put us $35 trillion in debt off all these, because we privatized everything. And who we privatize them to? Mostly Crown-controlled contractors. So who's the biggest contractor at USAID? check it out. It's Serco. And Serco is a crown control company that runs a lot of stuff. And I did an article on it. You can go to my Substack and read it. But Serco is the same van. It said Serco on the van that took Julian Assange away. Why? Because they contract in Britain too, for prisons, for police operations, they contract in Australia for schools. They contract for the driver's license office here in this country, the VA, USAID, the patent office. They control patents. They control innovation. So they see a patent comes along, they steal it. They deny it, steal it, give it to your friends at IBM or whatever, Silicon Valley. They control so much of what goes on. And yeah, Kyrgyzstan, another example. Kyrgyzstan maybe 2 weeks ago, kicked out the National Endowment for Democracy because they said, and they basically said, look, you're using these guys. They're lying to us. Who are these donors? These wealthy donors. What are we getting out of it? Isn't it just kind of an arm of the CIA that's spying on us and sort of steering us in a certain direction, of course, in the direction of free markets? So the corporations can commit. Peace Corps was used for the same thing. Good idea, Kennedy had, but it became pretty much a spy agency, a softening up thing. Evangelical missionaries, same thing. They're the new Catholic missionaries because the Catholics fall out of vogue, and now it's the evangelical missionaries that go all around the world, especially Africa now and South America, and soften people up for capitalism, soften people up for multinational corporations coming in and stealing their resources for next to nothing, and stealing their labor and leaving them in debt because all the World Bank loans, they don't go to the country, they go to the multinational contractor. And who are the contractors? Again, mostly it's crown controlled from the UK. So that's who it comes from. And that's where the soft power comes from. That's where the hard power comes from. That's where the weapons industry, Lockheed Martin, UK controlled corporation. It's all controlled by the crown. It's so much more concentrated and so much. I could never exaggerate this because every time I think, oh, maybe I exaggerated, I found out it's even worse. I find out it's even more concentrated, and it all connects. I mean, you just start checking it out. It all connects. It's all connected, and it definitely emanates from the city of London. That's who runs the show, and yeah, and so, I mean, yeah, hard power, soft power, intellectual power. Who controls the universities? They've been privatized. They used to get federal funding. Now they get funding from corporations. And so it's all kind of this military, industrial, education, pharmaceutical complex. And it all works now in tandem because their power has never been more concentrated. Maybe since at least medieval times, maybe it was more concentrated then. But in fact, that's what they're trying to do. They're taking us back to a medieval system. So I call it electronic feudalism because, like you say, with social media, look, it's an intelligence operation. I had my article yesterday at Substack banned on Telegram. People couldn't post it on Telegram. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. You switch to one. People say, oh, this one's better. That one's better. No, they're all controlled by the intelligence agencies. Don't you get it? And it's a dragnet for information. But more importantly, it's to mind control you. And if you are not part of that hive mind, you get pressure. And a lot of people cave to that pressure and just become obedient to the peer pressure. Really, it's peer pressure. It's that simple. But they know that, and that's why they're doing social media.
So, Dean, what's their agenda? What are they trying to accomplish with all of this that they basically have assumed control of? What's the agenda? What do they intend to do to the 7 billion people in the rest of the world? What are they trying to do?
Full spectrum dominance. And the last piece of that is our minds. And they have all the military, they have all the political parties and the political systems of every, not every country, but the important countries. They have the media, they have the intelligence services, they have the education system they want. Now, what do they need to do? Get inside your body. each individual now. So the COVID shots, the graphene, the antibodies, which are poison, which is a poison that comes in your body. Antigen, which is a vaccine poison. Google it. Google it. Google an antigen. Google an antibody. See what that means. So they put a poison in our body from where? A 5G tower. They call it COVID-19. And then they put an antigen, which is defined as a foreign substance, a toxin, to combat the poisoning. And it's got graphene in it. So it makes you what? Conductive. They're connecting a circuit. They're connecting a circuit in your body so that you can become a 5G antenna, because it's cheaper to build towers and spread the signal, but also so you can receive information and you can transmit information. In other words, you can be mind controlled. And that's full spectrum dominance. When you're able to do that, and when you're able to get to that point, that's full spectrum dominance. So whoever doesn't go along with that, they want us dead. Clearly. I mean, all of this war, all of this COVID, all of this madness is all designed as a depopulation tool, a eugenics tool. That's why mostly elderly people died in COVID, because they don't got to pay them pensions no more. They don't got to pay them retirements anymore. They don't got to pay them Social Security. They don't got to give them Medicare. That's a liability. Just write it off the balance sheet and kill them. Who else do they want to kill? Oh, third world people. Well, that's why there's war. They want to kill black people. That's why COVID affected black people more than anyone. Interesting. They targeted it. They can tailor these things. They want to kill activists, obviously. They want to kill us, people like you and me. Good luck. Good luck. But they're evil. And they, we don't have time in this show to get into why they want to kill us, or the fact they're terraforming the earth for the hybrid race that rules from these castles, that they're not human, and all this other stuff. And they also, people say AI is going to take us over, but it's a red herring, just like Trump's a red herring. It's a red herring and that's why it's in the news. Oh, AI is going to take our jobs. We can't tell what's from what. No, the real danger is that you become AI through the vaccine, through your phone, your constant addiction to technology, which makes you mean, which makes you not empathetic, which makes you reactionary. They know all this too. That's the main purpose. It's not that AI is going to take our jobs. That's not the big threat. The big threat is that you will become a machine, that you, and in fact, look around you, at least in America, look around you, and people are becoming machines. They're becoming AI. And that's possibly a cult, an Anunnaki cult, because that's like them. That's what they are. So you're being assimilated, just like we assimilated the Indians, just like we assimilated the blacks, or we tried to. They're trying to assimilate humans now into this satanic, Luciferian, fallen angel, Anunnaki thing called AI, which is what they are. And the ones that don't go along with it, we'll kill them with the 5G towers. If they can't handle it, they're dead. If they'll go along with it, we probably got a job for them for a little while longer. Eventually, we'll kill them too. Everybody's expendable. Look at Navalny, CIA agent. He's expendable. Everybody's expendable. Zelensky's expendable. They're all expendable. I mean, it doesn't matter, because Noriega was expendable. You work with him for a while. Saddam, once he woke up, expendable. He worked for the CIA at first. Assassinated Abdul Karim Qasim, the president before him, for the CIA. I know his handler's name was Bruce Odell. Expendable. We're all expendable, because this is a death cult. This is not these things that run the world are not from here. They hate humanity. They hate nature. They invert nature. They think they know everything about nature. These Freemasons that are lieutenants for the whole thing. They think they know so much. They're so smart. They know nothing about the nature reality. So they're also really dumb. And this is why we can defeat them, because we're smarter than they are. A lot smarter. And we have to use the brain that God gave us. God says, I'll only help those who help themselves, right? So Americans are really nice people. They try to be helpful. They try to, and Western Europeans too, but they're not smart people. And because we've been dumbed down for a very long time, very, very long time, before we even came here, before Europeans even were there. I mean, there's been this systematic attempt to diminish the intelligence of the human species by these Anunnaki invaders in Sumerian 8500 BC. And it's working, but it doesn't have to work. You can be one of those that it doesn't work on. Obviously, Regis, you're one of those. And so there's people that are, and it's wearing off, and it's wearing off fast. So, but it's good and evil. I still say the good guy that created this beautiful planet that we all get to live on and wake up another day in is so much more powerful than this evil force. And so eventually there'll be a victory, and call that what you want, but call it heaven if you want. Maybe it is. Maybe heaven's right here, right now. We make it or we don't, we don't know. But I'm on that side, and win, lose, or draw, and that's what counts. It doesn't, the outcome doesn't even matter in a sense. We just have to keep fighting. We have to keep being the good guys, because the whole war that we're really fighting, the bigger war that's going on, is they're trying to make us not good guys. They're trying to turn people into dark, satanic, mean people with no morals, that only care about themselves, that only care about narcissism, that nobody else's stuff matters. It's all about their stuff. Let me show you a picture on my phone. Here's a picture on my phone. Here's a picture. I don't care about your fucking pictures, okay? I'm so tired of that. Because that's just like, what are you trying to do? Make me feel bad because I didn't get to go on vacation over there, or I don't have a grandkid that looks like that, or they don't even know they're doing it, but they're being evil, and it permeates this whole thing, and it's just like people are going to the dark side in droves, and they don't even know it, and they're using technology because that's their thing. That's their thing. Technology. It's always been their thing. That's what these creatures are enamored with. They're not. They hate nature. That it's not good enough, so they had to make these cute little inventions that they just are so enamored with, which is utterly stupid. But that's where it's at, in my view.